What happens when you're asked a question and you have no idea how to answer it in an interview room? Today we're going to be discussing how to handle an interview question that you have no idea on how to answer. And Mary, our interview coach here at Corporate Staffing Services, is going to be joining me to discuss more on this. My name is Cynthia Wakio, the Communication and Events Manager at Corporate Staffing Services. Karibu sana Mary.
Thank you, Akio, for having me.
I missed you last week.
Oh, yes. So I was still on holidays.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It must be nice to be on holiday while we're back.
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's dig into it. What should one avoid doing when you're asked an interview question that you have no idea on how to answer?
Well, during an interview, it goes without saying, sometimes as a candidate, you will find yourself being asked a question and you run completely blank. You may not have an answer to respond to that question immediately. So that is not the end of the world for you as a candidate. But some of the things that a candidate needs to avoid, number one, is never lie. Avoid lying about your response. And then number two, also avoid being visibly uncomfortable. Like the interviewers or the panel can see that you are uncomfortable with that question. And number three, avoid being afraid of silence. It is okay to take some time and just pause and think through before you begin to speak. Yeah, because generally what happens, sometimes interviewers don't really ask this question because they're expecting a right answer from you. But what they want to see is to what extent can you be able to hold pressure? To what extent can you be able to handle stressful situations? So that's why sometimes you find a question out of the blues just comes and you run completely blank. Yeah.
Yeah, I think lying takes you to things that are not even related. So I think, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So what should you do instead?
Having prepared several candidates for their upcoming interviews, the best advice I would give on what to do in such a situation, number one, like I said earlier, it is okay to be silent and never be afraid of being silent. So being silent helps you to be able to buy time. So you can buy time, and as you buy time, you're also exerting pressure on the interviewers or on the panelists. They are wondering now, why is the candidate silent all of a sudden? As you buy time, you are allowing yourself, or rather your mind, to process through what to say. And it is okay to be honest. Another thing that you can do in such a situation is just be honest and inform, or rather tell the interviewers that this is an area that you're still very new in. You may not have the right skill that they are looking for, but you are open to learn, and you will definitely do more research about it and get back to them after the interview. Because even them, sometimes they're just asking the question to exert pressure on you. But if you're able to acknowledge and be honest, instead of just talking or ringing on something that is not making sense to the interviewers, yeah, sometimes it is better to be silent than to just speak up and whatever you're saying is not really adding up. Another thing that you can do as a candidate when you find yourself in such a situation is to redirect the question. A good example that I can give when it comes to redirecting, let's assume the candidate is being interviewed on something to do with social media marketing, and that's an area that maybe as a candidate you don't have so much experience in. You can redirect the question by talking about something that you have more experience in that is closely related. A good example can be copywriting, for example. But now again, this is the opportunity that you have as a candidate to show your excitement to learn a new skill and to upgrade your skill in that area. So the last thing I can talk about that a candidate can do whenever faced with a question that you don't have an answer to is to compose yourself and be very confident. Because again, the interviewers are keen on how are you going to react to that question. What are your first reactions looking like? And that is helping them to conclude how you will be reacting to those tough, challenging work-related situations when you are eventually on the job. So you need to exude confidence and just make the employer or the interviewer see you as someone who can be able to think through a tough situation, and whenever you find yourself in a stressful situations, you can still be able to buy time and compose yourself even before you react to the situation at hand. Yeah.
Do you think nonverbal cues really come through in such kind of situations? Because I feel you really have to accompany them with how you express yourself.
I agree with you 100%, because it goes without saying, whenever anyone is exposed to a stressful situation, and to be more specific, during an interview, you are asked a question that you never really saw it coming, and you begin to wonder, why is he asking me such a question? Maybe a candidate, you are a female candidate, and the person interviewing you is a male, and the first question they ask is, are you married? Then you begin to wonder, how is this related to the interview at hand? So they just want to see how is your reaction. And so even the body language comes in handy. That's why we said avoid being visibly uncomfortable. With the body language, we can tell whether you are uncomfortable, whether you are nervous. Yes, so it calls for you to be very confident. That is the best time to exude confidence and think through before you speak, before you begin to respond to the question.
Or even breathe a bit before.
Yes,
in
yes.
your 30 seconds.
Definitely. The deep breath
yeah.
helps a lot to help you calm your nerves, and to
yeah.
think through, yeah.
Yeah. So any final advice, anything you'd like to add onto what you've just said?
Well, what I would want to say to candidates, maybe listening or watching this video, is that it is okay not to have the right responses to all questions during the interview. Sometimes a question will always come that you don't have an answer to. It doesn't mean that you failing to respond or you telling the interviewer to give you more time to respond to that question at the end of the interview or even later in the day via email is like the end of your candidacy. But now, depending on how you handle the situation at hand at that particular time, if you take into consideration the tips we have talked about, then definitely there is a way the interviewer is seeing you and is viewing you, and they are concluding in terms of how you handle specific work-related stressful situations. So it is okay not to have an answer. It's not the end of the world, but then again, it takes us back to preparation. You cannot fail to have, fail not to have answers for all interview questions, especially the common ones.
Yeah.
Someone was asking me during the coaching session, like, what if that awful question you normally ask, the very first one, tell us about yourself. So I can actually tell them, I'll get back to you after the interview about that. I'm like, be prepared with the commonly asked interview questions, and even foresee the kind of tough ones you're most likely to be asked, so that it doesn't find you off guard.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's a good point you brought up. And we do have a free interview question and answer page on our website. But other than that, you need to be well prepared for your interview. The stakes are high. You want that job, so you want to be well informed and well prepared to know how to react to such kind of situations. We have interview coaching services where you're gonna find in the link below, and you'll meet Mary, who is going to help you prepare for your next interview. See you in the next video.